How could we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? This haunting question was asked by men and women who had languished in exile for 50 years. Uprooted from their own native land, separated from the symbols of their religion, overwhelmed by the weight of pagan culture, their morale was at a low ebb. But what really hurt the most was not their bondage, nor the taunts of their tormentors, but a devastating sense of God-forsakenness. They believed that God was localized in Jerusalem, and that he was powerless to help them in far-off Babylon. To these ancient Hebrews, God was not dead, God was simply impotent, a quaint anachronism, a symbol of the good old days, remembered with nostalgia and homesickness. Is this not a fairly accurate picture of our situation today? Behind every crisis that bombards us, there lurks the real crisis, the crisis of faith. Today we are witnessing what the theologian Martin Buber called the eclipse of the supernatural. That is our inability to see that God plays any significant role in what is happening in our modern world. Now, not for a moment do I wish to downplay the extent of the problems which haunt our society today. We think of the violence, the drugs, the misuse of alcohol, the gambling and suicide. But what I am suggesting is that these problems might be seen as visible symptoms of the deeper malaise which affects society. What I am suggesting is that they could be understood as palliatives trying to dull the ache of the inner terror, the sense of meaninglessness, which according to the theologian Paul Tillich is the special dread of our age. And if the diagnosis of the contemporary situation I'm offering is anywhere near the truth, if the real malaise is anxiety, stemming from a sense of God-forsakenness, then Isaiah's answer is the right one. Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God. What a profound insight into the meaning of the human predicament. When people experience lostness, estrangement, and despair, there's little or no point in condemning them. What they need, above all, is a sense of comfort. And by comfort, I mean not religion as a drug, not religion as soothing syrup, not religion as a psychological shot in the arm, but religion as fortitude. And this is the true meaning of the word comfort, which derives from the Latin word fors, meaning strength. This is the true meaning of Christian comfort. So what then are the particular characteristics of Christian comfort? And today I will mention three. Firstly, Christian comfort springs from the assurance that God or God's love cannot be defeated. God's love cannot be defeated. In his book called Rumor of Angels, the American sociologist Peter Berger supplies us with an excellent illustration of what Christian comfort really means. And it's all the more telling because the illustration he uses is so ordinary and basic to life. A child wakes up in the night and finds himself in the dark. In terror, the child cries out for his mother. In the child's mind, she possesses the power to banish chaos and minister comfort. And this she proceeds to do, taking the child and cradling him in her arms. She turns on a lamp, filling the room with a warm glow of reassuring light. And she speaks to the child, and whatever the words she actually uses, the message she imparts is this: don't be afraid. Everything is in order. Everything is all right. The child is comforted. His trust is ordered. Ordered reality is restored, and he goes back to sleep. Berger is making the point that this parental comfort points beyond itself to a greater love, a deathless love, a mysterious assurance of universal purpose running through all things. And secondly, Christian comfort springs out of the assurance that God cannot be domesticated. We no longer localize God in one country or sanctuary, as did the Hebrew people prior to the exile. But while paying lip service to this idea, we still often try to domesticate God. The methods we use to domesticate God may be more sophisticated than those used by Isaiah's contemporary, but they're not all that subtle either. God and our morals, God and our particular race, God and our pride, God and our scruples are all one. So much so that often the God of wonder, the God of awe and reverence has vanished. But you cannot domesticate God, says Isaiah. That was his message, not just to Hebrew exiles hanging their harps on the willow trees, but to the whole of posterity. And in order to hammer home the message, he resorted to poetry. And thirdly, there's the fact of the divine image in human beings. The biblical portrayal of humans is a curious amalgam, an amalgam of pessimism and optimism. Moses, the mastermind behind Israel's deliverance, was also, if you recall, a murderer. And David, the poet and mystic, was not averse to liquidating amorous rivals. And Peter, the rock on which the church was built, was at the same time a broken reed, inclined to go to pieces in moments of stress. So this is one side of the picture. The other is the incredible optimism of the Bible, especially in the New Testament. Jesus addressed the lost fully expecting them to respond. And Paul, who never minimized the grim reality of evil, urged Christians to be more than conquerors. That's all very well, you might say, but can we really continue to believe in the divine image in humans in face of all the evidence of current events taking place? Think about the situation in Israel and Gaza, in Ukraine, in Syria, in Sudan, and numerous other trouble spots. And what about those during the Second World War who were members of the Gestapo? Notorious individuals like Eichmann. It is not likely that the divine image in such people was not just defaced, but completely blotted out. You know, on this question, we simply cannot be dogmatic. The mysterious things about human beings is that they are transcendent beings. In other words, is that capacity to transcend the biological, which separates human beings from animals. By the grace of God, humans have this capacity to change in an instant. Some of you may have heard the name Dr. Viktor Frankl. He was an eminent psychiatrist who miraculously survived Auschwitz. And he cites the case of Dr. J. This particular doctor, Dr. J, was nicknamed the mass murderer of Steinhof. And he was dedicated to the gruesome task of sending all mentally disturbed people to the gas chamber. Now, at the end of the war, this dreadful person, Dr. J, was taken prisoner by the Russians. But next morning, the door of his cell was open, and he was never seen again. And it was assumed that with a number of other notorious Nazis, he had escaped to South America. But this turned out not to be the case. And some years afterwards, Dr. Frankl, the psychiatrist, was treating an Austrian diplomat, repatriated from a famous prison in Moscow. And this diplomat told Frankl that Dr. J had been in the same prison and had died at the age of 40 from cancer of the bladder. And during his imprisonment, he had behaved like a saint, tireless and selfless, using all his skill and every scrap of his energy to comfort others. So how can we ever presume to predict human behavior? So in these tough and challenging times, what we need above all is not condemnation, but comfort. Not religion as a sedative, anesthetizing our sensibilities, or as a tranquilizing drug, rocking us to sleep, but comfort as assurance that behind the seeming chaos and cruel indifference, there is meaning which makes sense of our strivings, and comfort as conviction that the God revealed in Jesus transcends, goes beyond all our efforts to possess him, and is inseparable from human nature, bearing his own image. Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God.